Okay, we're going to call the meeting to order. We're here for the Education, Environment, and Sustainability Committee meeting Wednesday, November 4th, 2015. Madam Clerk, can you call the roll?
Calling the roll, Ms. Simon.
Here.
Ms. Brown. Ms. Brown is absent at the moment. Mr. Jones.
Here.
Mr. Schrein.
Here.
Mr. Brady. Mr. Brady is absent. There is a quorum.
Thank you. Public comment related to the agenda? Any?
No, Madam Chair, no one is signed in.
Okay, so we have minutes from the last meeting, and I'll have to skip that and go out of order because two of us were not here. So when Ms. Brown gets back, we can go back to the minutes to get those approved. The first and only matter referred to committee is 2015-0222. Madam Clerk, can you read that for the record?
Resolution number 2015-0222, making an award on requisition number 34252 to Educational Service Center of Cuyahoga County in the amount not to exceed $602,000 for fiscal agent services for families and schools together, Bright Beginnings and Parent Services programs in connection with the fiscal year 2016 Ohio Children's Trust Fund Grant Program for the period 10/1/2015 through 9/30/2016.
Thank you, and we have somebody here to speak to this. Hi. Hi, Rob.
There it is. Robin Martin, Family and Children First Council. As read in the introduction, we released an RFP, a 34252, requesting a fiscal agent for the programs Families and Schools Together, Bright Beginnings, and two other requirements that we have for Family and Children First Council. The contract was awarded, we're attempting to award it to the Educational Service Center to serve as the fiscal agent. Just a little bit about the programs. Families and Schools Together is an international evidence-based multifamily program that operates out of 18 schools across 6 school districts. And it attempts to build protective factors in families. And so what happens, the program runs in the fall and in the spring. Each session is 8 weeks long. Families are referred by the school or they can self-refer. And they come into the 8-week session at the school building after school and once a week, and they go through a series of sessions with their child and with other parents. And we look for families. We have some families that are engaged, and we have some families that are not engaged in the academic process. So they're your families who are not coming to open house. They're not quick to return, the calls from the teacher, and they just don't feel connected to the school. And what we find with a lot of our families is because they're large families and, they have so many kids, and so they're having a hard time, keeping up with everything. So the families, they come in and they participate in these evening sessions at the school buildings, and they're able to build relationships with other parents, build relationships with the school, and strengthen their relationships with their children. And there was a CASA study done in around 2000 that said if you have families eat dinner with their child at least once a week, there's a direct correlation with the reduction of substance abuse because they're learning to have conversations with one another and having camaraderie as a family. And so we use this program to facilitate that process. The next program is Bright Beginnings. Bright Beginnings is a home visiting program that is operated by our Help Me Grow. They use a curriculum called Parents as Teachers, and they go in and work with families because we recognize that families are our children's first teacher, and they work with young parents to help them act in that role and capacity. The other two requirements that we have for Family and Children First Council, we are required to have 3 voting members on the council that are parents to provide input on decisions that are made by the directors that sit around the table. And so the ESC will release they'll probably issue something in the newspaper soliciting parents, and they'll interview the parents to make sure they have kids in the home under the age of 18, that they're able to participate in the meetings, and then provide them with our assistance, some type of training so that they come ready to participate. And then lastly, we receive a separate pot of funding from the state of Ohio called Family Centered Services and Supports. We have to provide the state of Ohio with what they call an assurance letter for the program. And in the assurance letter, we have to agree that if a family who is receiving wraparound or any other services from Family and Children First Council, if those parents request a parent advocate to attend a meeting with them, we have to provide that advocate. And so the ESC would also identify those parent advocates and train them. Oftentimes, they come through the state support teams through the ESC, and we probably get maybe about 10 to 15 requests for that service a year. The ESC contract, so in the role of fiscal agent, the reason we have a fiscal agent is because our office does not have the capacity to process all of the fiscal components related to this contract. So they receive a 5% admin fee out of the $602,000. The rest of the funding goes directly to those programs. And we went back and looked because they've been working with us since 2012. And since that time, they have processed approximately 450 subcontracts with our FAST providers and other providers for the individual programs. And they've also processed about 1,500 payments on our behalf with the funding.
Okay, any questions from the committee?
What are the ages? Yes.
Councilman?
Yes. What are the ages of the children served?
In each program? In the FAST program, it requires that the family have a third grader, so the target child is a third grader. However, if they have a third grader, a sixth grader, a ninth grader, and a kindergartner, if they can bring all of the kids, but that target child must be in the third grade. For the Bright Beginnings program.
And that was FAST, F-A-S?
For FAST, yes,
F-A-S.
Families and Schools Together. And then for the Bright Beginnings program, they're 0 to 3. Now, typically 0 to 3 programs fall under the auspices of Invest in Children. But as was mentioned earlier, some of this funding is Ohio Children's Trust Fund money. And the requirements for the Ohio Children's Trust Fund application require us to select programs that were on a list of evidence-based programs. And so what our county decided to do, the Family and Children First Council, was pick programs that we were already funding because it's easier to add components to existing programs versus starting up brand new programs. And so that's why Bright Beginnings is on the list, because it was one of the programs off of the state list. And then the other two, there's the advocates. Most of the kids, actually, the advocates could be for 0 to 21, and for the 3 parents, they just have to have kids in the home under the age of 18, so school-age kids.
Your contract, Madam Chair, your contract runs from October to September of next year. And since we're in the middle of the budget process, does this $602,000 come out of the future or the budget we're setting, or is it?
This is in 15.
It is your 15
Right,
budget.
because what we had to do was wait until we received the award letter from the Ohio Children's Trust Fund before we were actually able to issue the RFP and begin the process. Now, as I mentioned in my budget process, this is our last year of Ohio Children's Trust Fund as we knew it in the past. They're in the process now of releasing a new process, and we are not guaranteed that level of funding in the new process, which was $387,269.
How many children will you serve collectively across all of the programs?
FAST, so we're in 18 schools, and it requires 10 families per program, so that'll be about 280, and that's just the target child. You could have larger families in the process, so it could be 2 or 3 times that number. Bright Beginnings, they serve about 500, give or take a few, 500 kids per year. And then the other two, the parent advocates, it's about 15 families request that service a year. And then there's no direct service delivery on the 3 parents that are voting members.
Okay. Serving 280 and again 500 kids. And what is the universe? Are you covering the entire universe of individuals that need this service, or
No.
does that question make sense?
Yes.
In other words, how big a dent are you putting into the need that's out there?
Okay, so for Bright Beginnings, let's start with Bright Beginnings. The state of Ohio has a home visiting program, and there are very strict rules around who qualifies for the state program. So families that meet the criteria, but the slots are full, or they meet part of the criteria but not others, but still are at risk, they fall over into Bright Beginnings. So there's right now 2 funded Bright Beginnings programs. There's one that operates out of Invest in Children, and then there's the program that operates from our office. The difference between the program for Invest in Children and a program that operated out of our office is for Ohio Children's Trust Fund dollars, it requires that the families not be involved with the Department of Children and Family Services. However, under Invest in Children, that is not a requirement. So we're serving a similar population, but not quite the same because of that one stipulation. So right now, we do not have any kids on waiting lists. So we're serving the families that have presented to Help Me Grow at this point in time. Now, we did have some issues about 2 years ago where we had a waiting list, and there were some flexible funds within this contract, and we were able to do a budget adjustment to shift those dollars to cover the kids that were on the waiting list. In terms of FAST, the schools have to volunteer. When we initially started FAST in 2000, we had an influx of TANF dollars and other funds coming into the county, and we were able to pay for the full gamut of the school service, which means we paid for the building to stay open after school for this program to exist. So right now, when we offer it to the schools, we offer it with the understanding that we will provide the program, but if the school wants it, they have to meet us halfway, and they pick up the cost of keeping the building open in the evening. So they're responsible for security, and they're responsible for any custodial needs that occur in the evening. Right now, as I said, we have 6 school districts. We probably have 2 districts that have requested services, but we have not been able to serve them within the funding that we have right now. And I can't say for other districts. We offer it to everybody because there's no bid process. We offer it to everybody, but it's based on who's willing to keep the building open as to who gets the service and who doesn't.
This contract is backdated to October 1.
Yes.
Have they been delivering services, and have they not been paid since October 1?
We had money in the previous contract for them to do the startup, so they are able to operate off of the funds that were in the previous contract to get them started. So they can get through the first, because you prepay some of the money, they're able to get through the first semester. Anything that comes after the first semester would be in this contract, or any schools that wanted a late start, they'll have to wait until the contract is approved.
Okay. Are these contracts competitively bid, or is this really the one provider or vendor that can?
It was issued as a formal RFP, and this is the only provider that responded. We did have another vendor that attended the bid conference, but after hearing about the requirements and some of the programmatic aspects they would be required to operate, they chose not to respond.
How long has this one vendor had the contract?
They've been working with us since around 2011, 2012.
And is the contract an annual contract?
Yes.
So 4 years. How has the contract grown, or has it increased over the years?
The number of school districts fluctuates, but that's about the only difference in the contracts.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilman Schrock?
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Sorry, I just want the record to reflect Councilwoman Brown is here.
When is the state money going to run out?
June 30th, 2016.
And so that's going to be a gap from that date till the end of this service period?
Well, what'll happen is the FAST portion of the contract that is funded by Children's Trust Fund dollars, that portion will, and actually it's a natural end because it's also the school year. Well, most schools are going to end at the end of May.
Okay.
And so they'll have the 30 days to submit their billing. So that portion of the contract will end, but there's also levy dollars in this contract that covers some of the services through Bright Beginnings, the parent advocates, and the 3 voting members that would carry on until the end of October.
Okay, and then
I mean,
after that,
September.
yeah, after that period of time, the next year, without those dollars to be in there, will you be asking for us to be making that up in next year's budget?
We did not ask that in the budget process, so we will just have to serve the school districts that we can serve within the confines of our budget.
Okay, so you're gonna be serving less students under the new contracts. This is really last year's dollars, is what you're
Yes,
telling. So in the budget that has been proposed that we're discussing in council chambers right now, that budget will not be for serving the same number of students as this current.
no.
Okay, and what, I think that's actually what was being asked, how many less students are going to now be servicing? Even though it's not for discussion, I realize that that's not what's on the table. How many less students are we going to be serving in the budget process? 'Cause
Well-
as long as we're here, I'm going to capture information for that too.
Okay. We have, in the new process, we will eliminate the Bright Beginnings program, and the remaining funds will go to fund FAST, the parent advocates, because we're required to have them by rule, and the three parent voting members, and that's because that's required by law. So based on our final numbers, we will figure out how many school districts we'll be able to serve. Right now, and I know you may ask me this, and I can't tell you off the top of my head, we have costs broken down by what it costs per school. And so we would have to figure out how many kids we can serve based on how much funding we have.
Okay, so the 0 to 3 that is serviced by the Bright Beginnings will be cut out.
Will be eliminated.
It's actually what's being cut out in the budget process, right? This is
That's part of it, yes.
okay, all right. And why are we doing these annual? I mean, we went to all the trouble to create biannual budgets in a process on the basis that the vendors would also receive a benefit of not having to come in for an RFP every single year to go out and bid, because that costs them money too.
Right.
And every vendor that we had come forward to us told us that they would let that be reflected in their bid if they could be doing biannual bidding the same way that we can now do it in the county, the same way the state's been doing it for years. Why are we not using that tool?
We do biennial contracts based on the source of the funding. So if it's county levy dollars, we go ahead and do a biennial contract. But if it's state money, because it fluctuates, we do an annual contract. So for example, if we had a biennial contract for this, we're not going to have Children's Trust Fund dollars next year. So it's based on the source of the funding.
But we had biennial dollars, I assume, prior to this one terminating. Is that correct?
Correct. Well, and let me just say this. With Children's Trust Fund, I'm trying to figure out a nice way to say this. They change requirements at the state. So I'm like in 2011, they would say to us, you have to fund from this list. Well, I can't guarantee that the list that I receive in 2011 is going to be the same as the list I receive in 2012. It changes every year. And so one of the concerns that we had is if I contract with, let's say, the Education Services Center for FAST and Bright Beginnings, because they're on the list the first year of a biennial contract, it doesn't guarantee that when I get the list in year 2 that it'll be the same, and it may be something that does not fall. It requires me to go with a totally different vendor. It's a moving target with that funding.
Okay, well, but we went to the trouble, actually got it passed as a charter amendment to allow these tools to be out there, and everybody taking that podium said, yeah, it would be advantageous to be able to negotiate because your vendors would see a benefit it would seem to me we need to be letting the folks in Columbus know that it's better for everybody to get the dollars to work longer and harder.
It's wonderful on our other contracts. It's wonderful, but on a lot of our state contracts, we have another one. It doesn't come before council because of the dollar amount. The family-centered services and supports, it's based on the federal money that comes into the state, and so the dollar amount they're always any time you're working with my experience. Anytime we're working with the state and part of the money flows from the feds, it's a moving target. And so we would have to come back in to do some type of either budget adjustment or amendment on almost all of those types of contracts because the dollars amount, they never stay the same.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Okay, Councilman Brown.
Thank you. My apologies for my tardiness to my colleagues and the presenter. The question I have, and this may have been addressed, you mentioned 6 school districts and 2 which are not funded. Which school districts are the 6 and which 2 are not funded and why?
Okay, I'm sorry. The 2, what I said is in terms of the 2 that are not funded, when we move forward in the next funding process, I may have 2 that I'm unable to fund. We don't know yet.
Okay.
But the 6 districts that are funded now, Cleveland Metropolitan School District, Cleveland Heights, University Heights, Brooklyn School District, Parma, Lakewood, and Richmond Heights.
Okay, and those are the ones that apply because this is just an application
Correct.
process. And then you said you may not be able to fund 2.
Right. The 2 that I remember now. The 2 that applied, one I know is North Olmsted, and I would have to check in my office to see what the second one. I know we also had a charter school that showed interest, and we've been waiting to hear back from them as well.
And the other question to follow up with Councilman Shrine, if the Bright Beginnings program is eliminated, does that, I think you said in your previous comments or statements that it serves 500 kids per year?
Yes.
So we won't be servicing at least 500 kids per year due to that elimination?
Not through our office, but I can't speak for whether or not they will be able to work with them under Invest in Children, or if they may be able to qualify some of those families for the state program.
Okay, and then one last question: do you have you been involved with the conversations? Because would that be a UPK related program?
No, it is
Okay.
not.
All right, thank you.
I have a question whether you've been able to talk to Invest in Children, if the Bright Beginnings gets cut through your office, if they'll be able to pick up that ball.
Rebecca is aware that we made the cut. What we did discuss is Ohio Children's Trust Fund, they are going to roll out a new process. And so what we are hoping will happen is that our office will be able to reapply on behalf of Help Me Grow in the new process. The problem is because the new process is not fully developed, I cannot give a specific dollar amount to say what we can cover and what we cannot. So we have to look at it now as an elimination with the hope of there being other options introduced hopefully sometime in early 2016.
No. Just
Councilman Jones.
for 4 years, for multiple years, we always see contracts, and you don't always put a face to what the need really is. Could you just take a moment and sort of illustrate for us what are the problems that we're attempting to address with a contract like this? What's going on with the children or the families? What is it that you're trying to address?
Well, I'll start with Bright Beginnings. Bright Beginnings, many of our families, they're under 25, and this is either their first child, and a lot of the ones where it's the first child, they may be 18 or younger, or they're 25 and under this is their second child. And so, as I mentioned earlier, the premise of Parents as Teachers is looking at the parent as the child's first teacher. So, are you reading to them? Are you thinking about their dietary needs? Are they eating a lot of McDonald's, or are you giving them fresh vegetables? So it's almost like an in-home parenting. Well, it is. It's an in-home parenting program. So what they would get if they went to a parenting program in a group, instead they get with a one-on-one worker. And then there's also helping the parent to identify which developmental milestones are appropriate for their age, and which milestones are they not meeting, to know if they need to do other referrals with Help Me Grow, or sometimes maybe with the Department of Developmental Disabilities. In terms of FAST, the teachers have identified that they're having problems communicating with the parent, and there may be things going on with the child in the classroom that require some parental engagement, and they are unable to engage some of the parents. And so they would reach out to the parents and ask them to come into this program. What we find is that we have some parents that may not have high school diplomas, or have high school diplomas but have some phobias about working with schools. And we use this program to try to address that issue. And when they come into the program, there is a team that works with them. The team includes parent partners, so they're partners who may or may not have gone through the program, but a lot of them have gone through the program, or they know someone who has gone through the program. They have a representative from the school, and then we have a member from our provider community. So Beachbrook is one of the providers. You may have someone from Belfair that is actually on the team. And so through that group, working with the parents as a group, they're able to connect the parents. Sometimes they may give them referrals for services, make suggestions about services, but they're also working with them on how to do positive interaction with their kids, and then helping them to develop relationships with other parents in the community so that they may not feel as isolated. In terms of the advocates, we have parents who have kids that have some pretty significant needs. They may have a severe emotional disturbance. They may be involved with the developmental disabilities. They may be involved with tapestry, or have a multisystemic therapy case. And as they're participating in some of those team meetings, sometimes as professionals, we have a tendency to slip into acronyms and start talking about, programs that are available. And sometimes our parents, they can't keep up with all the system lingo. And so, or they may feel that when they're speaking to the team, that their voice is not being heard. And so they have the option of having an advocate come in with them to help explain some of what's being discussed in the meeting if we do slip into system lingo. But in addition to that, that advocate can work with the parent to make sure that they feel comfortable communicating their needs and being very clear about what they would like to see happen for their child.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just a question about the service provider, educational service center. You're here, do you, what else do you do, and what other contracts do you serve for the county, if any?
Thank you for asking. I'm Bob Mencherick. I'm the county superintendent. So many years ago, I went around and made sure all the schools in the county was doing a good job and meeting all regulations for the state. That organization has moved into a strictly service organization now. So we serve all the county districts. In fact, we serve 14 outside of the county as well, including Akron City Schools and this year Cleveland City Schools as well. We have about 3,000 employees spread out across the county and beyond. We do professional development. We do a lot of fiscal agency work because we have the capacity to do it. But more importantly, we can connect Robin to all of the school systems in the county and actually in Ohio. So we have that unique ability to connect social agencies with the districts throughout Cuyahoga County. And we're really quite happy to do that work. It's kind of what we can do easily. We're also the fiscal agent for Help Me Grow, for the Positive Education Program, PEP, for the Rosemary Center, and a number of other programs. So we're a $90 million organization, again, with 3,000 employees. We love this work. We want to help all of our social agencies connect children with the right people, educators and professionals. And we have a lot easier way of doing it because we know all these school districts than Robin can do it on her own. So that's really where we're valuable. And be happy to answer any other questions.
No,
Councilman Jones?
not a question, but a comment. I appreciate you being here, and I'm thankful that you're here today. Robin is very well versed in her department, and when we ask those more penetrating questions, I'm always appreciative of the thoughtful and detailed answers I get. And as I'm sitting here, I'm just thinking, and back in my own committee, Health and Human Services, I think I'm going to start expecting my directors and the vendors to be present, and maybe some of the lower level people within the department. Now, Robin is where the rubber meets the road. She can certainly speak for her department, maybe not being the size of some of the larger departments, but that type of dynamic is really helpful, I think, to council to gain a better understanding of just the services provided. And just sitting here thinking, I think I'm going to start in my committee of making sure I have that type of representation in each of my committees.
You know you just put a target on my back, right?
Did I? No, you tell them come talk to me, Will. Thank you both.
Councilman Tron?
As long as we have you up there, and then just to put it on the record, then if I understood the math, then you're being paid $30,000. Is that correct?
For this contract, yes,
Yeah.
correct.
Okay, and total countywide, what amount would we be paying directly to you for services? Do you have the?
For county services,
Yeah.
I think this is it. I don't
This is
think
the
we have.
only contract you have with the county?
Right. Now, I am the elected chairman of the FCFC, which is totally voluntary. I serve on the council, have for years, and with Rick Warner leaving, I took over that role with Robin and with Billy Osborne Fears as well. We're involved in a lot of things that go on. If the county administrator asks for help from the county schools, we usually step in and try to serve in that role. But I don't think we have any. I'm going to ask Jen Dodd, who's works with me, if I'm speaking correctly or not. Jen, do we have any other comments?
Yeah, with Office of Early Childhood.
Unfortunately, yeah. Oh, there's just throngs of people watching this at home right now.
That's all right.
Yeah.
We also have some contracts with the Office of Early Childhood in partnership with them and some others on the early childhood mental health work that's been going on. And then also some of the funding comes from there for Spark and also the Help Me Grow, as we're fiscal agent for Help Me Grow as well.
Okay. And you're the superintendent that, when I was on Chagrin Falls School Board, that the exempted villages, schools and things like that were directly related to? Is that how that works? Just for more
Exempted villages, we work with all of them. The board that I report to is directly, they actually live in the three locals in our county. That would be Cuyahoga Heights, Richmond Heights, and Independence. So they're voted officials from those three areas, and that's a very old process that's been
Right.
going on for a long time.
Yeah,
But I
well-
still report to that group.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
And I would also, if it's committee, I would also like to mention that Dr. Mendry, he's a mandated member for the Family and Children First Council.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, can you talk in the microphone?
As he mentioned, he's a chair for the Family and Children First Council. We have some members on the Family and Children First Council board that are mandated by state law to participate, and he is one of our mandated members. We also are required to have members from our nonprofit community. So the way our bylaws are written, we have to have one chair that represents some type of county or government entity, and then the other chair must represent one of the nonprofits. But he is one of our members that is specifically stipulated in the law.
Thank you. Councilman Jones, you have something to add?
Kind of a general question to Doctor. I've heard it said before by some that the county should not be involved in education. I don't know if you've ever heard that, but since you're the principal's principal across the county, what is your take on that type of statement?
Well, I don't agree. I think we should all be involved in education. Every single parent, person, no matter what you do in Cuyahoga County, I think you should be part of education. We've got to help the children and the organizations help our children become better educated so they can have great lives and good jobs. And I think it requires everyone to do that. So I am a huge advocate for public ed, and that's why we're here tonight. It's why we help Robin, and when Robin calls us and asks us to help, we do that. We want to make sure that our kids have every single opportunity that's available to them, and we work really hard at that, and I hope everybody in Cuyahoga County does the same.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Our county charter passed by the residents of Cuyahoga County included a provision for education. So it's in there.
You are
Okay.
correct.
Right, thank you. We can't forget that. So this contract, starting effective date is 10/1/15. Would you request that this go on second reading for passage, or I would, if possible, does the committee have a problem with that, moving it to the next council full meeting for passage? Okay. All in favor?
Second.
Aye. Any opposed? None. Okay, thank you very much. This will be on at our next council meeting. Thank you. Nice
you.
meeting again. So we have to go back to the minutes quickly. We have two people who were attending the meeting, and Councilwoman Brown chaired, well, in my absence. Thank you very much. So do you want to take a look at the minutes, and can I have, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Two people on the committee approved, okay. Which is a quorum for that meeting. Miscellaneous business, I have none. We'll be actually coming back in this committee through after the budget process, just to see and explore the proposals coming from the executive. Any public comment?
No, Madam Chair, no one has signed in.
Okay, we're adjourned, thank you.